year ago, if someone had told me I would be pushing a Royal Enfield 350cc motorcycle over 100 km/h speed in corners, I would not have believed it. But if 2020 has taught me anything, it's to expect the unexpected. And here we are with the Royal Enfield Meteor 350. 349cc fuel-injected 2-valve SOHC single-cylinder motor with air and oil cooling producing 20.2 horsepower and 27 Nm of torque. If you are aware of modern engines in Indian 300cc motorcycles, you know that 4 valves, DOHC and liquid cooling are pretty standard affair, so this modern engine from RE isn't the latest generation tech, but when you compare it to the previous generation Thunderbird's engine, it has moved away from the push rod valve actuation to the SOHC setup and added an additional balancer shaft to counteract the vibrations. And this new engine feels nothing like the old generation Royal Enfields, and yet it has a beautiful retro charm in the way it delivers the power and reminds me more of the 650 Twins' linear and enjoyable power delivery. But how fast is it? Let's find out. We tested the 0 to 60 and 0 to 100 timings along with top speed. The Royal Enfield Meteor 350 achieves a top speed of 120 km/h, but even at 100 km/h, the engine doesn't feel all that stressed, which brings us to highway cruising speeds. 80 to 100 km/h is easily doable by this motorcycle all day long. And the power comes in at a lower RPM, so the engine doesn't really feel stressed, and it's a really nice comfortable feeling to cruise on this motorcycle. When we rode the Interceptor 650, I felt it had one of the best ergonomics for highway riding. Unfortunately, the Meteor 350 falls short on that account. The handlebars are a bit too low for my liking and smaller as well, which otherwise contrasts with the very comfortable upright sitting position and relaxed front set footpegs. The rider's seat is wide and comfortable, but I'm more impressed with the pillion seat, and our Supernova top spec variant came with the pillion backrest, which is an absolute blessing for two-up touring over long distances. The clutch and brakes are both very well finished, but I feel even with my longer fingers, they were too far out and I had to really reach for it to bring in the clutch. And since it's not an adjustable clutch lever, that was an issue that kept nagging me. To sum it up, the ergonomics could have been perfect if they had gotten the handlebar design right, but we all know that it's an easy fix to swap with a bigger and higher handlebar, and you can get clutch lever adjustment. So I believe after those two modifications, this would be perfect for highway cruising. The power delivery is very linear and friendly, as I've mentioned, but the throttle response is also there, and the lag which was there in the previous generation of motorcycles is no longer present. So while overtaking or just doing some spirited riding, the motorcycle is able to keep up with your wishes, and that's where it really connected with me, whereas the previous generation of Royal Enfield had failed to do so. Handling is another area where I was concerned about. The motorcycle has a 50-50 weight distribution, which means the front end is relatively light and slightly wobbly. But once you get a hang of it and use more of your body to control the motorcycle, you realize how easy it is to steer this motorcycle into corners. You do have to do your braking early, bring the motorcycle into the line cautiously, but once it's there, the mid-corner stability is great and you can accelerate out of the corner quite early. The new motorcycle comes with a 1400mm wheelbase, which is significantly longer than the previous version, whereas this gives the motorcycle great straight line stability It's not good for canyons or quick change of directions. When I tried to push the bike a bit hard in corners, I could feel that the front was getting a little misaligned and the rear end would follow through just a fraction of a second later, which I've also experienced in other long wheelbase motorcycles. So this is not surprising, but just something that I wanted to mention in the handling. What I would have to stress on is the handling is a lot better than any previous Royal Enfield 350cc motorcycle that you have ridden, but quick flickability in traffic or riding in the twisties is going to be a bit affected thanks to the longer wheelbase. I feel this new finesse in the handling is more due to the double down tube chassis, which replaces the single cradle frame from the Thunderbird 350. I was expecting the new generation motorcycles to be lighter, and the Meteor 350 is 191 kilograms, which is 6 kg lighter than the previous version, but take that with a grain of salt. The new weight reduction is just due to the fact of the downsizing of the fuel tank by 5 liters. For a 20 horsepower motorcycle, that much weight isn't a good thing, and the motorcycle feels sluggish in city riding conditions. We did a considerable amount of city riding and the Meteor 350 gearbox is smooth, so you don't need to shift all that much thanks to the abundance of torque and the wide power band, but the low speed maneuvering and filtering and U-turns are a bit tricky with this motorcycle. Despite being a 350cc air-cooled motor, heating isn't such a big deal on this bike. Even in bumper-to-bumper traffic and first gear crawling between cars, the motorcycle did not heat up significantly. I wasn't expecting city ride brilliance, but the motorcycle is livable in city riding condition. However, relaxed cruising on the highway and long sweeping corners is where the motorcycle really shines. As you know, when you're heading to the highway, two things matter the most: brakes and tires. There's a 300mm single disc up front that is surprisingly spongy and lacks bite in the initial bit, but when you do press it, there's a nice progressive braking, and combined with the braking force of the large 270mm disc on the rear can bring this bike to a quick stop. I'm not going to say that this bike has phenomenal braking performance, but for relaxed cruising at 80 to 100 km per hour, this kind of braking will just about do. They have gone with a 19-inch front wheel and a 17-inch rear wheel, which is an odd combination, but the rear wheel is a 140 section and it's wide and grippy enough for this kind of a motorcycle. Interestingly, the 650 Twins which we rode had a 130 section rear tire, which we found to be inadequate for the speeds that motorcycle is capable of. But having a 140 section tire along with tubeless tires is really setting a safety standard on this motorcycle, as nobody wants a flat tire on the highway, and I've never been a fan of tube tires as they are a safety hazard. Speaking of safety, the motorcycle is equipped with dual channel ABS, so the combination of alloy wheels, wide tires, decent brakes and ABS makes it one of the safest Royal Enfields that I've ridden. One of the advantages of having 20 horsepower and a relaxed tuned long stroke 350cc engine is the mileage figures would be around 35 km per liter, which is phenomenal. Combined with the 15 liters of fuel tank, that translates to a range of about 450 km, which is good for long distance touring. Another welcome feature is the tripper meter, which can be connected to the Royal Enfield app, and the meter can display turn-by-turn navigation. We tested this feature out quite a bit in the city, and I'm happy to report that it functions almost perfectly. The only downside is if you turn off the ignition, you have to reset the GPS. So on highway rides, if you're taking a break in a restaurant, you would need to reset the GPS destination before resuming your ride. There are 3 variants: Fireball, Stellar and Supernova, which we rode. I would advise you to get the Supernova with the pillion backrest and this beautiful dual tone blue color scheme. I must congratulate Royal Enfield on getting the paint finish absolutely perfect on this one. The color looks really good up front, and that makes this motorcycle look super premium in my opinion. You can find a lot of photos on my Instagram. The Supernova specs comes with a tall windshield which blocks out a lot of wind buffeting to the chest. Though there is still some buffeting, on the helmet. While testing the top speed, I tried to duck under the windshield and found that this is not an optically correct version. They probably weren't anticipating somebody ducking down below the windshield. So as long as you are sitting upright and cruising, this is a very functional windshield. Royal Enfield has taken customization to the next level with a lot of aftermarket accessories including engine guards, touring seats, windshield options, luxury foot pegs, panniers and whatnot, which you can all customize from their very well designed Fluid app and get the motorcycle designed and fitted to the exact specification before delivery. They can even add your name or your company name on the badge and take it to that much of a personal level. This is something which is really listening to the customers, and I really like a brand when it takes that much more initiative to really connect with their audience, so I applaud them for that. Now let's join in for the post-ride discussion in conclusion to our full ride experience. So we've been riding the Royal Enfield Meteor 350 for the better part of yesterday and today morning as well. Two major takeaways: motorcycle's been built from the ground up, new engine, new chassis, new gearbox, basically an all new motorcycle. It's the successor to the Thunderbird 350 and it's going to be the new platform for all the 350 motorcycles to come from the Royal Enfield stable. The first thing that I differentiated from the previous version was at 80 to 100 kilometers per hour cruising speed. At those speeds, the previous motorcycle was very vibey and almost unusable in my opinion, but this one I'm happy to announce to you that at 5th gear, 80 to 100 kilometers per hour cruising speed feels like a bliss. What I would like to stress on is the beautiful pillion seat on this motorcycle, and my helmet, it's actually being rested on a backrest, which is so much good for the pillion. This is a motorcycle that I definitely recommend to you for two-up touring because the pillion is in absolute comfort, and because the vibrations have reduced, both the rider and the pillion will feel better on this motorcycle. Do understand that vibrations make your forearms go numb and tired, so when they have taken that away and increased the refinement of this motorcycle, now this has really become a product that is good enough for the international markets. And I'm going to stress this out for you: this is no longer gonna be a niche product in the markets outside. I do feel this moving up more to a mainstream buyers, because previously abroad audience wanted this only for the retro looks, but this is now a very capable and usable relaxed motorcycle with an authentic retro feel. Great job on the fit and finishes. I really like the round start stop switch. It is such an old world charm but extremely functional at the same time. There's a very beautiful design theme that has been backed by the beautiful fit and finish, and I'm really impressed because they have improved the fit and finish to a degree that now it gives that premium feel similar to the price tag it commands. It gives you that feel that you're paying for something and you're getting something in return. Even the seat material, it's all very, the touch materials, whatever you touch on this bike, it feels very nice to touch. So those are very smaller things that you can only experience while coming out and touching the motorcycle. So go out there, there's a lot of test drive units. Royal Enfield has always been really good about that. So go out and feel this motorcycle, you will like it. And another thing which I would like to stress on is the throttle response. If you've ridden Royal Enfields before, minus the 650 twins, you would know that twisting the throttle, the power came in with a lag, and that really did not cut it for me. It takes away the enjoyment. It has been laid out in a wide rev range, and whenever you open the throttle, if you're in the correct gear, there's obviously going to be a very nice response from the engine. It's not a very powerful motorcycle, I might add, but the wide rev range, and even if you don't shift, you're carrying a higher gear with lower speeds, the engine doesn't knock so much, so you don't need to shift all that much. Not really going to scrape on bumpers. It handles the bumps well, handles Indian conditions well. So if you think about it, this is more like a relaxed cruiser minus the low ground clearance and the load out stance. It's kind of like a cross between a standard motorcycle and a cruiser, which means it's a bit high but at the same time has the same characteristics
of a relaxed cruiser. So really impressed with the Royal Enfield Meteor. The problems, the flaws I've already listed out, but I really think for the type of audience that it is targeted towards, this motorcycle is gonna deliver a stellar performance. Thanks for watching, and do check out this motorcycle. Go out for a test drive if you are this type of a rider. Do hit the subscribe button if this is your first time on my channel. Goodbye.